Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who has helped me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Bruce McIntyre, who describes to us a part of his life where he had reached a point where he wanted to make a life transition. He's a very successful business owner, and a part of his transition was to sell his business and go into another chapter of his life. But at the time he wanted to sell his business, he was diagnosed with cancer. At that point, he had to prioritize his life events, that selling the business was a high priority, but necessarily his cancer treatments and the furtherance of his health was a higher priority. So he talks to us about how he prioritized the very important decisions he made, delegated, and trusted some other people. But in the process, we learned that he is a former resident of Indiana. He's a Hoosier. Marty, you have roots in Hoosier land. What can our listeners take from Charles Bruce McIntyre and his life?
We're both from Indiana, and I grew up in Marion, so not very far from Indianapolis. I asked Bruce during this podcast, he had to trust the attorneys during this time of his treatment of cancer and hand over all of the sale of the business to them. So I asked him, how did you build that trust? He builds relationship with those he deals with. He didn't say this, but in relationships, my thought is you have to know their values, their character, and the fact that they would have his best interest in mind and not do something against his will.
It's a great life story. Let's listen and learn together. Bruce, it's great to have you with us. You are a consummate entrepreneur, a very successful business owner. And in 2010 or so, you learned you had cancer. It seemed, Bruce, there was a point in your life when maybe you were thinking, well, I'd like to transition to something a little bit different. But then you learned you had cancer. So now that was one more thing in the bucket of things to do. Bruce, I think we can learn a lot from you as a business owner, how to prioritize, delegate, and how can we reach decisions when we have I use the term multiplicity of factors we're dealing with. I think you're the right person, Bruce, to help us through this. Welcome aboard. Good to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Ron. It's good to be with you.
Bruce, can you give us a little bit of a background of the multiplicity of factors, maybe the way you used to think, maybe kind of how you're forced into a different way of thinking and help our entrepreneurial listeners prioritize things the way you have learned to have to do it, it seems.
Well, yeah, thank you. I think I can sum that up best this way, Ron. I had been in the business world for 47 years when I was ready to retire. The first 17 had been in corporate America, and then the next 30 years had been on my own, starting my own business from nothing, building it over 30 years to where I was ready to sell the business and step off into the sunset, retire, play more golf, and just enjoy the rest of my life. And it was on the morning that I was headed to Baltimore to meet the potential buyer of the business that I had discovered a lump on the left side of my neck, about the size of a AA battery, and I was worried about it, of course. And that lump turned out to be cancer. I was faced with a choice. I could either treat the cancer and put the sale on hold, or I could go ahead and sell the business, hope the cancer didn't get any worse, treat the cancer after the business was sold. Neither of those really made much sense to me. But I realized I was continuing to look at it as an either or question, not the kind of multiplicity factor that you talk of, but as separate things that I had to decide on their own. And it took me quite a bit of struggle to realize that I could do both of those, start the business and treat the cancer, if I stepped back and let the professionals step in. No question that I was going to let the professionals treat the cancer. I wasn't about to try that. But as a business owner, I certainly wanted my hands in the negotiation for the sale. But even there, I came to realize it was better to let the attorneys in Washington, D.C. deal with that in a more unemotional way, and that they could do it better than my emotional involvement in the sale. So I ended up with both stepping back and letting the professionals do the work.
Marty has reminded me on more than several occasions, only women can multitask. Men are not designed to do that. And I'm going to put the term multitasking in this context based on how I process what you just said. You did have a multiplicity of tasks that you're having to deal with, but you personally were not involved in every one of those decisions simultaneously. It was not an either or, but rather you could deal with a multiplicity of tasks simultaneously. But Bruce, I'm interpreting you delegated to those who were able to handle things and you prioritize. I don't want to suppose I interpreted correctly what you said. Please correct me if anything I said is not the way you were handling matters.
Well, no, I think that's exactly right, and I think Marty is very wise. I think that maybe because women raise children and they have a child on their hip and they wash dishes and cook dinner and do all of these things at the same time, they're better at it. But men really aren't, and men seem to just only be able to focus on one thing. But what I found was that thinking that just because I was successful at my business, that I was successful at everything else I stuck my fingers in. And that's not true. There are always people who are better equipped to handle something than I am. And so finding those people and trusting them, I think is a great formula for success. If you don't have yourself surrounded by people who are better than you, then you don't really have people you can turn to and trust.
I'm interpreting as well or processing what you're saying. The decision to sell the business ultimately is your decision. You are the business owner, but You had attorneys, other people involved to surface decisions you need to make, but you had to prioritize those decisions while you're competing with your life with cancer. And
That's
so
correct.
I am believing you're saying you are able to prioritize your life's priorities. Your health was at the top priority. You will bring the other decisions to mind with those you trust, and you'll be able to prioritize things better that way and not have to burden yourself with the details that were actually secondary to your life. Is that somewhat the thinking process you went through?
Well, I think that's exactly right. I think all through life we make choices, and it's those choices that define the ultimate direction of where we're going to end up. So making a choice is so much of what matters in any successful life, and I think that's what I was doing.
Bruce, you mentioned trust, and Ron mentioned it. That is a huge thing that you have to have trust in the attorneys. So there are certain things you looked for to know that you could truly trust them. There may be a person out there saying, I've got this, and selling a business for someone is a huge matter. What would you look for that could totally have you sold on this person that I can trust them to do the right thing?
Yeah, well, Marty, I tend to do business more with relationships than with simply transactions. There are people who treat every business deal as its own single standalone transaction. They get three bids on something, they take the lowest price and they go with it. That may work for them. I've not found it to work that well for me. The people I do business with then and now are people I have long-standing relationships with, and it's past history that lets me judge future performance. And so, if they've been helpful and things have always worked out in the past, I'm confident that things will work out in the future. If they are totally unknown, then obviously the results will be unknown. So I'm more comfortable in transactional based thinking than I am in strictly sale to sale reactionary type transactions.
I'm interpreting what you're saying, Bruce, that the relationships is all important, and it takes time to build relationships. You and your wife have been married 56 years. Marty and I look up to you. We've only been
Yeah,
married
more
50.
than that now, I think. Well, yeah, no, I think you're right. I better check that.
Yeah, based on the arithmetic of
Yeah,
having been married in 1967, you're
yeah,
56 years approximately.
yeah,
Marty and I
okay.
were married in 68, so we're 55
Yeah,
years.
yeah. I don't want to mess up on that math or I'll get in trouble.
Yes, she will always correct our arithmetic. And but relationships, it's all important, Bruce. And I'm going to believe you ran your business that way. You had relationships, and everything is about trust, relationships, and everything is relational. And my guess is you and your wife probably communicate very well. You share information together. That's your relationship. I'm only curious. Marty and I are in business together. Are you and your wife in business together? Can you discuss business with her?
We did then, and Joyce worked for the company for a little bit early on, and then our two growing children joined us in the business for a little bit. And I think it was one Sunday evening at dinner when the conversation turned more to business, and Joyce realized that not only was it me and her, but both of our children said, I think that's probably enough, and I'm going to back out of this. So she kind of took a leave of absence at that point and was no longer quite as involved. Yeah, I mean, she always knew the status of things, but not on the day-to-day business basis that she did in the beginning.
For the entrepreneurial thinker, who would like to maybe transition to something different, something new, how would you help that person think into the process, Bruce, that you want to transition to something different? Perhaps the listener has done what they've done for some number of years, but they just want to do something different. They're not certain what it is. Can you help that person determine passion, purpose? How do I make the decision to transition from go to
Mm,
something different? I no longer get the satisfaction out of what I was doing. I want to transition to something new, but I don't know what that new is. Can you
yeah.
help that listener?
Yeah, let me try. Let me first say that I usually make it a rule not to give advice. I tell stories. I tell people what I may have done, but I try to let people make their own decisions rather than me telling them what to do. But I would tell someone that for me, trying to figure out what would make me happy, what would really give me joy, is the first step in the process of starting to envision what it is I would like to do. And don't get too confined in that. That could be anything. It might be in business, but it might also be in the arts. It might be in writing. It might be in painting. It might be returning to school and teaching. It's whatever's going to make you happiest. And then I always try to envision myself 5 and 10 years out, not just what that will look like today, but what it'll look like tomorrow. And start creating a vision of myself in that happier new environment and seeing myself thrive in that environment and getting a good picture of what that looked like. And then it would be time to start. Now, so I can really sum that up, I think, by saying start small, think big, but act now. Let me kind of go through those again. Think big. Think out 5, 10 years. What could this be? But start small. Don't try to get there overnight. One step at a time, one foot in front of the other. But go ahead and start. And if you wait until every light is green, you're going to wait too long. Sometimes you just have to go.
I think what you said is very important. One step at a time, that's one thing. But a lot of the way Marty and I think as well, and I too agree, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. I can tell you what I did. And as you learn from different people, different stories, maybe you'll find something that'll fit for you. But thinking long term, 10 years out or so, I'll try to help you think that way. But what brings fulfillment? Total satisfaction. What is it that really, at the end of the day, can bring total satisfaction with you, joy, whatever term you want to use? But I can say that, yes, I am totally fulfilled in what I'm doing. And think into that. That to me helps define a purpose and a future. Is that somewhat the way you think about yourself, Bruce?
I think exactly. I think exactly.
And so, did you, even though you were engaged in a business for 47 years, did that business, even while you're engaged, make a transition? Did you change with the times and so forth? How did you evolve, if I could use that term?
Well, yeah, I think you have to. I think everything changes, and the rate of change accelerates. And so if you're not ready for that, you get left behind quickly. So yeah, I think we never tried to be out on the bloody edge of change. We tried to stay a little bit back, let the others make the fatal mistakes, and we'd come along behind them. We tried to be a leader in everything we did, technology, all of the other aspects of our company. But it was always comforting if someone else, somewhere else in the country, had tried it first and maybe they failed, maybe they were successful. It was often better to be just a half a step behind them than a half a step out in front of everybody.
And I frequently talk with people about just change, evolution. I sometimes use the expression, I'm interested in knowing what you think. If you have been doing what you're doing for 1 year, that may be a matter of you're evaluating the process of what you're doing. If you've been doing what you've done without any change for 3 years, it may be time to think into changing and evolving and just seeing what you can do different. If you have been doing what you've been doing for 5 years or more, a thought is you might be stagnated and you
Yeah.
may not be up with the times. You may not be currently thinking what others are thinking. To me, that's a little bit of evolutionary thinking. And it sounds as if you probably engaged in something of that matter.
Well, I think that's right. I think someone said, I can't remember who, but if it isn't broken, break it. Because if you've been doing the same thing for too long, it's probably time to change.
And change for some people is a terrible thing.
Oh
We've
yeah.
always done it this way, and I'm used to doing it. Change, oh my gosh, I don't like to change. Have you worked with people who you've had to overcome that kind of a mindset?
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you do that, Bruce? You've
Well,
got a staff of people who, oh my gosh, we've done it this way all along. I'm just getting in the groove, so to speak, and now you're making me change. And sometimes change is terrible because I don't like to change.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know that there's any one magic answer for that. I guess I probably tried all sorts of things from why don't you just try out this time and see if you like it to why don't we do that for a month and see what the results are to let's just try it and see if it works better. I mean, to what'll it hurt? Anything that will move the conversation forward. Because if you just keep going back and forth about we've always done it this way, why change? That's not going to change the conversation. You've got somebody's got to be willing to take that first step.
And I think for me, there's an aspect of let's fail forward. In other words, the
Yeah,
change we implemented
bingo.
may not have been the best, but let's all work together. And there's nothing wrong with failure. Thomas Edison said, I didn't
Yeah,
fail
10,000
10,000
times.
times. I just found 10,000 ways it didn't work.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, but I think as we work with those we're leading to accept the fact that not everything will work. In fact, maybe some of us encourage failings
yeah.
because innovation, good
Yes.
thinking is always going to involve something that didn't work out exactly right, but we're always going to improve. We're always going to move forward. Is that a part of your leadership philosophy?
Yes, it always has been. The other part of my philosophy, Ron, as it may seem, was that our company had a DNA built on the things that I had done wrong. I was not at all afraid to tell our people the mistakes I had made, the things that I had done that didn't work, and they would build that into the culture. They would say, but don't do it this way, the way Bruce did it. That didn't work. Do it this way. This works. That kind of camaraderie, that kind of fellowship, if you will, seemed to create a culture that was willing to try things.
I use the term Bruce frequently. I want to be appropriately vulnerable. That is, I have no problem telling you the many things I've done that failed. I'm not going to focus on the failures and we're not going to focus unduly on the past, but I learned from. That's
Yeah,
what I want to do. I can tell you, yes, I did this, that, and the other thing wrong, but I feel I use the term appropriately vulnerable. I don't mind at all telling you I'm confident enough about myself now. Didn't always think this way, but I'm confident enough now to tell you about my various failings and what I learned from and through that, and we move forward. That's the
yeah.
kind of culture I like to create, Bruce. And it sounds as if that's exactly the culture you created as your leader and as an entrepreneurial thinker.
Yeah, thank you.
As you lead your people into that kind of a culture, do you almost even encourage failings? Let's think something new.
Well,
And
yeah. our company was in the sales business as really, when you think about it, every business is. Everybody sells something, everybody has a customer. If you don't ask, the easiest way to avoid a no answer is to never ask a question or ask for an order. If I walk into a customer and say, "You don't need anything today, do you?" The customer will say, "You're right, I don't." And you feel good because you got an answer, a yes answer, but you didn't get an order. So it's only by asking and putting yourself out on the limb that you move forward. So that's the kind of culture you try to develop. So failure is a part of it.
I'm looking at your book. There are no answers here, only questions. I'm thinking that stimulates my thinking to think, okay, ask questions, be curious.
Yeah.
And is that
And
a
and
lot of what your book is about?
and that's the theme you'll get, Ron, all the way through the book, because many of the stories we've talked about here, the development of the business, what it was like in the early days, how I failed, all of those stories are in the book. And the book kind of builds through that, and it interweaves the cancer treatment, the progression of the cancer with the progression of the sale of the business. So they dovetail together. The cancer was discovered and the sale process started in the same week. And 4 months later, not only did I finish the cancer treatment, but I cashed the check at the bank in the same week. So during that 4 months in the summer of 2010, I went from handling both of those situations. And that's really the story of the transition in the book.
And your book is available through Amazon. The book title, There Are No Answers Here, Only Questions, available through
Yes,
Amazon where other
it
books are sold.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place books are sold. It is also on Kindle and available on Audible.
And Bruce, I'm going to ask you, there was a time in my life early on, I would never ask a question because I, at the time, believed I was dumb and stupid. By asking a question, I would eliminate any doubt about whether I was stupid. That was my mindset. As my life has progressed, I have learned to be, I use my own self-described term, incurably curious. My guess is you would encourage your people, be incurably curious, ask questions, because that is what stimulates thinking. I'm interested in your thoughts, Bruce.
Well, that's absolutely right. I think it was Mary Kerr who said the only cure for boredom is curiosity, and there is no cure for curiosity. And that's true. I think when we stop being curious, living stops, because a life that isn't curious is not really one I care to live.
Wow, that is great, Bruce. You have a life of wisdom. You've got a great story of your marriage, thinking, being an entrepreneur, and love your spirit, Bruce. On
Well,
behalf of
thank
our
you.
listeners, I want to thank you for sharing part of your life story, for your encouragement of being an entrepreneur. And I want to encourage our listeners to get your book. There are no answers here, only questions. Bruce, you've got a great story, a great life. We look forward to continuing your life journey. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you, and it's been great to be with both of you.
Thank you. We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life's experiences with you.
The Cooper Culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.